Imagine this. You're in a relationship that feels like a battlefield, where every interaction leaves you drained, confused, and questioning your own sanity. You've tried to be understanding, to be the bigger person, but deep down, you know something's wrong. What if I told you that Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, has already mapped out the exact behaviors that are poisoning your connections? Today, on Sigma Male Community, we're going to uncover the 10 unacceptable behaviors that Carl Jung warns us never to tolerate. These aren't just random red flags, they're deeply rooted in the shadows of the human psyche, and understanding them can be the key to reclaiming your power and finding true, authentic relationships. As Sigma males, we pride ourselves on our independence, resilience, and ability to think for ourselves. But even the strongest among us can fall prey to manipulative tactics if we're not aware of them. Carl Jung's work gives us the tools to see beyond the surface, to understand the unconscious drives that govern human behavior. By integrating his insights with the Stoic principles of self-mastery and rational thinking, we can navigate the treacherous waters of relationships with clarity and strength. So, buckle up, because this is going to be a deep dive into the dark side of human nature and how to rise above it. 1. Emotional manipulation. Disguised as love, Carl Jung's psychology teaches us that the human psyche is a complex interplay of conscious and unconscious elements, and nowhere is this more evident than in relationships. Emotional manipulation, when disguised as love, is one of the most insidious forms of control. It's when someone makes you feel guilty for asserting your needs or boundaries, conditioning you to believe that love comes with discomfort. Jung would say that this behavior stems from the manipulator's own shadow, the repressed parts of their personality that they project onto you. The shadow, in Jung's terms, is the hidden side of our psyche, filled with traits we've rejected or denied, such as anger, envy, or insecurity. When someone manipulates you emotionally, they're not just trying to control you, they're avoiding confronting their own shadow. By making you doubt your own feelings and needs, they shift the focus away from their own unresolved issues, creating a cycle where you're constantly second-guessing yourself. This is unacceptable because it erodes your sense of self-trust and autonomy, leaving you trapped in a relationship built on fear rather than mutual respect. As Sigma males, we value authenticity and self-reliance above all else. When faced with emotional manipulation, it's crucial to recognize that true love doesn't require you to sacrifice your identity. Stoicism teaches us to maintain our emotional equilibrium, to not be swayed by the passions of others. By understanding Jung's concept of the shadow, we can see that the manipulator's actions are not about us, but about their own unresolved issues. This knowledge empowers us to set firm boundaries, to protect our inner world, and to seek relationships where love is given freely, without strings attached. Remember, tolerating manipulation is not a sign of strength. It's a betrayal of your own self-worth. Carl Jung's psychology reminds us that our journey toward individuation, becoming our true selves, requires us to reject such toxic dynamics. By standing firm in our values, we not only protect ourselves, but also model what healthy, authentic relationships look like. 2. Contempt, masked as honesty. Another unacceptable behavior that Carl Jung would warn us about is contempt disguised as honesty. This is when someone delivers cruel or demeaning remarks under the guise of being truthful or just being honest. Jung understood that true honesty comes from a place of integrity and compassion, not from a desire to wound or dominate. When someone uses honesty as a weapon, it's often a projection of their own shadow, the parts of themselves they dislike and cannot accept. By criticizing you, they avoid looking at their own flaws, using you as a mirror to reflect their own insecurities. Jung's concept of projection is key here. What we dislike in others is often what we've repressed in ourselves. This behavior is unacceptable because it creates a power dynamic where criticism overshadows connection, leaving you feeling small and unworthy. In the context of Sigma male philosophy, we strive for genuine connections, not superficial ones built on fear or control. Stoicism reminds us that our worth is not determined by others' opinions, but by our own character and actions. When faced with contempt masked as honesty, we must remember that this behavior is more about the other person's insecurities than about us. Jung's psychology teaches us to look beyond the surface, to understand that such behavior is a cry for help from someone who hasn't integrated their own shadow. By maintaining our composure and not internalizing their projections, we protect our mental health and preserve our dignity. Carl Jung's work on individuation encourages us to embrace all parts of ourselves, including those we might find unflattering, so we don't fall into the trap of projecting our own flaws onto others. By staying grounded in our own worth, we can rise above this toxicity and seek relationships where honesty is a bridge, not a blade. Third, control packaged as protection. Carl Jung's work on the anima and animus highlights the importance of balancing our masculine and feminine aspects. When someone tries to control us under the guise of protection, it's often a sign of their own imbalance. They may be projecting their fear of vulnerability onto us, attempting to limit our freedom in the name of care. Jung would say that this behavior is a manifestation of the persona, the mask we wear to present ourselves to the world. When someone uses protection as a means of control, they're not acting out of genuine concern, but out of a need to maintain power. This is unacceptable because it suppresses your individuality and autonomy, turning you into a dependent rather than an equal partner. As Sigma males, we value our autonomy and our ability to make our own decisions. Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies in self-control and rational judgment, not in dominating others. When we encounter control disguised as protection, we must recognize it for what it is, a tactic to keep us dependent and submissive. Jung's psychology encourages us to integrate our own anima and animus, to be whole individuals who don't need to be protected in such a way. By asserting our independence and setting clear boundaries, we can break free from this manipulative dynamic and foster relationships based on mutual respect and trust. Carl Jung's teachings remind us that true protection comes from empowering others, not from restricting them. By embracing our own strength and rejecting this form of control, we honor both our Sigma male identity and our Stoic principles. 4. Gaslighting, the assault on your inner compass. Gaslighting is perhaps one of the most destructive behaviors in relationships, and Carl Jung's concepts can help us understand why. Gaslighting is the systematic denial of your reality, making you doubt your own perceptions and memories. Jung would relate this to the shadow and the process of projection. When someone gaslights you, they're projecting their own insecurities and fears onto you, trying to make you question your sanity so they don't have to face their own issues. This behavior is unacceptable because it attacks the very foundation of your identity, your ability to trust your own mind. Jung's concept of the ego, which he saw as the center of consciousness, is crucial here. When gaslighting occurs, it's an attempt to dismantle your ego's confidence in its own perceptions, leaving you disoriented and dependent on the gaslighter for truth. For Sigma males, who pride themselves on their clarity of thought and self-reliance, gaslighting is particularly insidious. It attacks the very foundation of our identity, our ability to trust our own mind. Stoicism teaches us to rely on our own judgment and to be resilient in the face of adversity. When we're being gaslighted, it's crucial to hold on to our inner truth, to remember that our experiences are valid. Jung's work on individuation encourages us to integrate all parts of ourselves, including our intuition and emotions, which are often targeted in gaslighting. By staying grounded in our own reality and seeking support from trusted sources, we can resist this form of manipulation and protect our mental health. Carl Jung's psychology reminds us that our inner compass, our sense of self, is sacred, and no one has the right to tamper with it. By recognizing gaslighting for what it is, we can reclaim our power and build relationships where our reality is respected. 5. Dismissal of your inner world. Carl Jung placed great emphasis on the importance of the inner world, the realm of dreams, intuitions, and personal growth. When someone dismisses your inner world, mocking or belittling your dreams, goals, or spiritual beliefs, it's a profound violation. Jung would see this as an attack on your process of individuation, the journey toward becoming your true self. Such dismissal often comes from individuals who are disconnected from their own inner worlds, projecting their own fear of introspection onto you. This behavior is unacceptable because it stifles your growth and forces you to shrink your true self to fit their limited perspective. As Sigma males, we understand the value of pursuing our passions and living authentically. Stoicism reminds us that our true purpose lies in aligning our actions with our inner nature, not in conforming to others' expectations. When someone dismisses your inner world, it's a sign that they don't respect your individuality. Jung's psychology teaches us that honoring our inner world is essential for psychological health. By standing firm in our beliefs and continuing to nurture our inner lives, we can rise above such dismissals and find fulfillment on our own terms. Carl Jung's teachings remind us that our inner world is not just a part of us, it's the core of who we are. By protecting it fiercely, we ensure that we remain true to ourselves, even in the face of ridicule or indifference. 6. Chronic lack of empathy. Empathy is the cornerstone of healthy relationships, and Carl Jung recognized its importance in understanding the human psyche. A chronic lack of empathy, when someone consistently overlooks your pain or invalidates your emotions, is a clear sign of relational toxicity. Jung might relate this to the shadow, where the individual has repressed their own capacity for empathy, perhaps due to past traumas or a fear of vulnerability. By not acknowledging your feelings, they avoid confronting their own emotional depths. This behavior is unacceptable because it leaves you feeling isolated and unseen, as if your emotional reality doesn't matter. For Sigma males who often value emotional resilience, it's easy to mistake a lack of empathy for strength. However, true strength lies in the ability to connect with others on a deep level. Stoicism teaches us to be compassionate and just, to treat others with kindness even when they don't reciprocate. When we encounter a chronic lack of empathy, we must recognize that this behavior is not about us, but about the other person's limitations. Jung's work encourages us to develop our own empathy, to understand that everyone has their own struggles, By seeking relationships where empathy is mutual, we can create connections that are truly supportive and fulfilling. Carl Jung's psychology reminds us that empathy is not just a nice to have. It's essential for genuine human connection. By prioritizing it, we ensure that our relationships are built on understanding, not indifference. 7. Repeated betrayal, wrapped in apologies. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow can help us understand the pattern of repeated betrayal followed by apologies. When someone continually hurts you and then apologizes without making genuine changes, it's a sign that they're not taking responsibility for their actions. Jung would say that this behavior is a way of avoiding the integration of their shadow, the parts of themselves that lead to betrayal. Each apology is a temporary fix, allowing them to continue the cycle without facing their own flaws. This is unacceptable because it keeps you trapped in a loop of hope and disappointment, eroding your trust in both them and yourself. As Sigma males, we value integrity and accountability. Stoicism teaches us that true remorse leads to action, not just words. When we're in a relationship where betrayal is repeated and only superficially addressed, it's a red flag. Jung's psychology reminds us that genuine growth comes from confronting our shadows, from acknowledging our mistakes and working to change them. By setting high standards for ourselves and our relationships, we can avoid being trapped in this cycle of hurt and hollow apologies. Carl Jung's teachings emphasize that true accountability is about more than saying sorry. It's about changing behavior. By demanding this from others and ourselves, we create relationships that are built on trust, not empty promises. 8. Selfishness, disguised as independence. Carl Jung's ideas on individuation emphasize the importance of becoming a whole, integrated individual. However, when someone uses independence as an excuse for selfishness, taking without giving, or prioritizing their needs above all else, it's a distortion of true independence. Jung might see this as an over-identification with the ego, where the individual fails to recognize their interconnectedness with others. This behavior often stems from a fear of vulnerability or a lack of empathy. It's unacceptable because it creates a one-sided dynamic where you're left emotionally bankrupt while they claim to be free. For Sigma males who cherish their independence, it's crucial to distinguish between healthy self-reliance and selfishness. Stoicism teaches us that while we should take care of our own needs, we must also consider the well-being of others, especially those close to us. When we encounter selfishness disguised as independence, we must remember that true strength lies in balance, in being able to give and receive, to be both autonomous and connected. Jung's psychology encourages us to integrate our need for individuality with our capacity for relationship, creating a harmonious whole. By recognizing this behavior for what it is, we can seek partners who understand that true independence doesn't mean isolation. It means mutual respect. 9. Sarcasm as a weapon. Sarcasm, when used as a weapon, is a form of passive-aggressive communication that can erode trust and intimacy in relationships. Carl Jung would likely relate this to the shadow, where repressed anger or resentment finds expression through indirect means. When someone uses sarcasm to belittle or hurt you, it's often because they're unable to express their feelings directly, perhaps due to fear of conflict or rejection. This behavior is unacceptable because it normalizes disrespect and creates an environment where you're constantly on guard, waiting for the next jab. As Sigma males, we value directness and honesty in communication. Stoicism teaches us to speak our truth with courage and to listen with an open mind. When faced with sarcasm as a weapon, we must recognize that this behavior is a sign of emotional immaturity. Jung's work on the persona and the shadow encourages us to be authentic, to express our true feelings rather than hiding behind sarcasm. By modeling healthy communication and setting boundaries around disrespectful behavior, we can encourage others to do the same and foster more genuine interactions. Carl Jung's psychology reminds us that true connection requires vulnerability, not veiled hostility. By rejecting sarcasm as a weapon, we create space for relationships that are built on trust and mutual respect. 10. Emotional withdrawal as punishment. Emotional withdrawal as a form of punishment is a tactic used to control and manipulate through silence or distance. Carl Jung's concepts of the anima and animus can shed light on this behavior, as it often involves a withdrawal of affection or communication to punish the other person for perceived wrongs. This behavior is a way of avoiding direct conflict and instead using emotional distance as a weapon, which can be deeply hurtful and confusing. It's unacceptable because it creates a cycle of fear and insecurity, where you're constantly walking on eggshells to avoid triggering their withdrawal. For Sigma males, who may value their own space and independence, it's important to distinguish between healthy boundaries and punitive withdrawal. Stoicism teaches us that emotions should be managed with reason, not used as tools for control. When we encounter emotional withdrawal as punishment, we must understand that this is not about us, but about the other person's inability to handle conflict maturely. Jung's psychology encourages us to communicate openly and to resolve conflicts directly, rather than resorting to emotional games. By staying true to our values and seeking partners who can engage in honest dialogue, we can avoid relationships that use emotional withdrawal as a means of control. Carl Jung's teachings remind us that true connection requires presence, not absence. By rejecting this behavior, we ensure that our relationships are built on mutual engagement, not manipulation. As we've journeyed through these 10 unacceptable behaviors that Carl Jung warns us never to tolerate, I hope you've gained a deeper understanding of how psychology can illuminate the darkest corners of human interaction. Remember, knowledge is power, and by recognizing these behaviors, you're taking the first step toward creating healthier, more authentic relationships. Here at Sigma Male Community, we're committed to helping you grow, to become the best version of yourself. A man who is strong, independent, and wise. If you found this video valuable, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that will challenge you to think deeper and live better. Until next time, stay stoic, stay Sigma, and never settle for less than you deserve.